I'm going to reveal to you the 12 steps to winning at marketing. And what happens next is that, well, there are only 4 steps. Create, share, some kind of magical process, and profit. In order to succeed in marketing, you have to create something representative of yourself and your audience and distribute it in the right way. In reality, there is some assembly required. The one idea I want to express today is that marketing is complex because it strives to understand human beings, and human beings are perplexing. But you have the tools to understand them. You just need to look for the right things, and there are 12 steps. We'll start with the voice. Who are you? What can you promise me, and how can you live that promise every day? Corporations may or may not have human rights, but they're filled with people who strive every single day to live up to the ideal of their organization. Red Bull has a loud voice, but it's not just loud. It's one of the strongest brand voices on earth, not just among beverages or pick-me-ups. Their promise is wings, an alternate reality where you can free fall from the edge of space at the speed of sound or perfect that kickflip. The people at Red Bull express their identity through dazzling content fueled with adrenaline. When I was embedded in their office, I observed the massive, dedicated team of data scientists, brand evangelists, gut-driven executives, and multimedia heroes who represented this voice from behind the edge of a blue and silver can. Their voice is just as strong as their visual identity. The field of visual identity was pioneered by Gordon Lippincott, a one-time engineer turned industrial designer who coined the phrase corporate identity and gave brands the storytelling capacity to compete in a crowded market. Lippincott introduced evolution. Brands aren't anything new. Merchants have been marketing their goods for centuries. But he literally wrote the book on design for business. And his production, from the Campbell's Soup label to the Big G and General Mills to the pervasive and ever-consistent Coca-Cola brand globally, gave us a new idea of the promise that goods engendered in the marketplace. PAULA SCHER is one of the most prolific and active designers in the world, and she more than anyone knows that anyone has a challenge when bringing a story to life. In the comic here, there's a designer presenting her work to a client, and the client saying, "Why should I have to pay you so much if it only took you 10 minutes to make this?" To which she responds, "I studied for 10 years to be able to create this in 10 minutes. When PAULA SCHER was tasked with designing the logo of Citibank, she actually drew it on a napkin in less than a minute, and then she spent a whole year with boards justifying her intuition and her expertise, justifying the symbolism behind it, only to come back to an assembly that mirrored what was on the napkin in the first place." And this is because people have a strong attraction to trivial matters. It's actually called Parkinson's law of triviality. And what it means, it argues that organizations will give undue weight to trivial ideas. And it's something that no matter what assembly you're pursuing, you're going to have to contend with. Many of you will recognize this building. The Moorhead Planetarium houses the offices of the oldest merit scholarship in the country. And in their history, they've not only grown in network and promise, but they've also seen their example mimicked in other institutions. And despite their position as the first and the oldest, this necessitated the development of a brand identity and a differentiating line of implementation. This need evolved over time, as all things do, as their audience renewed and changed and had different values. So they tasked us with revitalizing the branding, and we analyzed and researched and drew upon the best practices of others and came up with multiple iterations that ultimately resulted in their most current, present expression. Branding should speak to an audience on an intimate level. It should evoke an emotional response. If it's intended to inspire, its purview should be grand. The colors, the font, the typography, even the space between the brand and the next thing on the page should exist solely to support your message. The Moorhead Cane's audience is adaptive, and the branding needed to be adaptable. It needed to be built on the latest technologies. The website needed to be current, responsive, and flexible. So that whether a high school was looking at the website for the first time on their smartphone or an alumni was considering a generous gift from their tablet device, the gravitas of that institution was alive. If there's one thing that has completely revolutionized marketing strategy. It's the abundance and accessibility of data. Data today isn't just big, it's incomprehensible. The former chief scientist of Amazon.com said that in 2009, more data was created than the entire history of the world preceding it. It's the proliferation of pocket computers that are all interconnected with sensors all over the world that have unleashed a flood of information so violent that even the metric system struggles to define it. Beyond the academic benefits of being able to see the price gouging of textbooks and the absurd rise of cost relative to consumer goods, data gives us insights into human behaviors. Marketing used to be driven by focus groups. But like the elementary particles in Heisenberg's uncertainty principle experiments, when we're observed, we change our behaviors. When we're speeding down the street and we see a cop, we slow down. If we're in a focus group of moms, we're unlikely to admit to sharing junk food with our kids. Social conversation is volunteered, on the other hand. It's a public declaration of our beliefs. We check into our favorite haunts. We spit vitriol about cable companies. And during the USA-Germany game in 2014, we let loose on a kind of unfiltered racism that's a direct line to understanding who people really are. My clients understand that data is the most powerful tool in their storytelling toolkit. Pfizer got rid of the Viva Viagra ads when they realized that men were searching on Google about questions about ED that were completely different from what they were saying on forums. We built a model for Warner Brothers that predicts future home video sales with 90% accuracy based on social conversation and public data. Red Bull will look to see what the most happening place on a campus is based on location service check-ins and send a wings team over to make it a party. The data exists because media channels have changed the way we consume and share information. If you haven't seen a PESO model in your marketing classes yet, you will. It stands for paid, earned, shared, and owned. And it stands for your advertising, which is scalable, your external endorsements, which are credible, your shared media property, like social, which makes you authentic, and your website, which is where you define who you are. Campaigns have to be integrated today because your target audience never stays in one place, and they all like different things. We worked with 180 LA on a campaign called 2 Days to Beat for HP. They made a laptop for young people. It's a tablet and a computer in one, and they wanted to prove how powerful it was. So they recruited Clamps Casino to produce and Vic Mensa to MC, and they asked people to comment on YouTube and turn those comments into actual music. And they live streamed the creative process over the web for 2 days and showed how artists and millennials could bring a product to life through art. They surrounded their audience with this message. And the reason they were successful is it was born from hard work and insight. Sometimes the task is even greater. Dove used to be the #1 brand in men's body wash. Procter & Gamble was going to scrap the Old Spice brand, and my friend at Wyden Kennedy knew that the audience, which was made up mostly of women who make the consumer decisions in the household, needed to be talked to. So they came up with this campaign. And it had kind of Keanu Reeves sort of character, surfer dude, speaking directly to the audience. But they hadn't defined the brand voice yet, not until this guy showed up and said, "Look at your man, now look at me, now look back at your man, now look back to me." This is Isaiah Mustafa, and the rest is history. The steamy Old Spice Super Bowl ad went viral. Now here's the thing, they never actually aired this ad during the Super Bowl. This was the genius of the marketers over there. They called USA Today and they said, "How do you figure out what you're going to include in your wrap-up?" And they said, "Well, we just go on YouTube and see what videos people are talking about." And they said, "All right, well, we're going to buy out all the ads for Old Spice Super Bowl commercial and get it into your wrap-up." And that got 40 million views. It was lightning in a bottle. It turned into its own meme. It won a ton of awards. Old Spice rocketed to #1 in the men's body wash category, and Isaiah Mustafa won an Emmy Award, and he showed it to me when I went and visited his house. It's a cool story. I'll tell you later. So if I learn all this now, I'm done, right? Kind of. New things will always emerge, but the one thing that will never change is that marketing is an effort to understand human behavior. Technology and media will evolve. The future of Facebook is it will become infrastructure like email, right? We'll use it to sign on to websites. And augmented reality like the Oculus Rift, which I tried last week, will change the way we consume media. I did not want to take that thing off. Mainstream adoption of new media will accelerate. The White House published their 2016 budget on Medium and GitHub. And if you don't know what those things are, they'll probably go away in a couple of years. It doesn't really matter. Language itself is evolving. The English that we use today is different from the English of Beowulf. Organizations will always try to co-opt the lexicon to connect with young people, and that's not limited to the National Republican Convention. No one watches TV anymore. Half of people are using a smartphone when they're watching TV, and the brand impression just doesn't come through. Half of online ads are actually not seen. Data from Google shows this. So what does this all mean for today's marketer? That traditional marketing techniques are ineffective, and that we have to become experts in digital, and that social media and analytics are part of the job. So let's bring this all together and show how we bridge to profit. Lap bands had been ignored by their parent company for 5 years, and declining sales and share of voice meant that they were losing out. So we did the analysis and found 3 key insights. Lap band was perceived as ineffective because of bad aftercare support from surgeons. Many patients were using a bad diet, and peer-to-peer recommendations were the most effective way in converting patients. So the approach was to teach the doctors, teach the patients, find the prospects, and surround them with messaging that can bring lap band into their life. So we introduced new advertising that was driven by patient stories we found in social media. My daughter can hug me fully. I can wear this dress again. It fits. And that became the tagline of the campaign. We connected those patient advocates with the potential patients. We gave them a new opportunity to have a platform to talk directly to the patients. We took their stories and put it in social media. We took those advocates and put them on the Dr. Oz show. And then when people went online afterwards to find out what this whole Dr. Oz lap band thing was, we had a bunch of paid advertisements that directed them to a customized experience on the website. And it was skinned as seen on Dr. Oz, and it had the brand voice, and it had that compelling story. And conversion fell out of this. It cost them less to convert than ever before. Every metric went up. But most importantly, they exceeded their sales target by 25%. It was all due to conversions, which Jackson Pollock so aptly illustrated. When things come together, even chaotically, the results can be beautiful. So what about that third step? Create, share, succeed. Success is a series of small wins, compounded by what you learn with every win. Effort and a discerning mind are the bridge to profit, accolades, rewards, mastery, or whatever outcome you hope to achieve. The process repeats itself, and successful people never view their success with finality. Every time, they ask better questions, and as a result, they get better answers and come closer than ever before to understanding human behavior. And you won't believe what happens next. Thank you.